Party people!
Woo! Here we go! Our celebration of WBOC's 60th anniversary rolls on. Today's Decade a Day has us in the 90s. We're taking a look back, including the stories that define the times.
And what would a look back at the decade be without a retro recipe? Plus Wes Davis in the house to play for us those songs that just make you sway. How about some Oasis and Radiohead?
Also today, we're taking a serious look at something that can affect women really at any age. Find out what can trigger an eating disorder, the signs to look for, and how you can get help.
Many people need help when it comes to overcoming loneliness. It can overwhelm you at any time, anywhere. We're going to tell you how lifelong learning can be key to your mental health. Plus, we're going to share with you the inspirational story of this 86-year-old woman who is defying the odds by reaching for new heights.
How many of you would love to buy a new car but think you can't afford it? Coming up, we talk with the experts to find out the top 10 coolest cars under $18,000.
Well, hopefully this blurry brick wall behind me doesn't give away where I am, because that would ruin the game. Coming up, I have your 3 clues in today's Search for Striker. Delmarva Life starts right now.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Lisa Bryant.
And I'm Achy Breaky. No, I'm not.
You look like him.
I like to sing it, though. I'm Jimmy Hopple. Welcome to Delmarva Live from historic Studio D.
Is that really what you want to say? You know what you really want to say. Do it. Go it. Do it.
Sorry.
I love it.
I've been holding on to that all week long.
Yes, you have. And we are chilling in the 90s today on Delmarva Life, and it's all good.
It's all good.
It is.
It's
you
all
know
good.
what I'm saying?
Giddy up, and may I say that you are looking mighty fly.
Fly, I am. Thank you. And so are you, mullet and all.
Yeah,
you and your achy, breaky heart.
You
Well, the
liking
90s was a decade of radical change. I mean, the Soviet Union crumbled. Nelson Mandela was finally freed from prison. Michael Jordan reigned. Retired and returned, all in the 90s. And me? Well, talk about radical change. I got married and became a mother. Yeah, that's radical change.
Look at that.
You saw what I looked like in the 80s.
Is that Sam?
Yeah, that's Sam. This was taken in Ocean City shortly after we made Delmarva our home. I also met one of my best friends in the 90s.
Yes, you did. But
And-
before we talk about him,
Oh, no. Here he comes. Here, let's see a picture of him.
Okay.
There he is.
just in case you need a little help, that's me on the left. That's Jimmy Hart. If you remember wrestlers like Ted DiBiase and the Iron Sheik, you probably remember their manager, Jimmy Hart. I don't have quite the mullet that he did, but
But you had one.
I had one. That's
Yes,
from
you
a
did.
radio broadcast back in the 90s in
Yeah.
Pocomoke. That's what it was.
Yeah. Well, you know, the decade of the 90s began with the United States actively participating in the Gulf War against Saddam Hussein, turning Norman Schwarzkopf and Colin Powell into household names.
Yeah.
All sides are girding for war in the Middle East. Tonight, UN Secretary General Peres de Cuellar issued one last appeal for Iraq to get out of Kuwait.
Preceded by Operation Desert Shield, Operation Desert Storm was a war waged by coalition forces from 34 nations, led by the U.S. against Iraq in response to Iraq's invasion and annexation of Kuwait. Now, in April 1991, the UN Security Council passed a resolution establishing formal ceasefire terms.
From the top to the bottom on the, I don't remember what side of the building it is the entire front of the building.
A war zone on American soil, April 19th, 1995. The Oklahoma City Murrah Federal Building bombed. Hundreds, including children in a daycare center, were killed. Later, Timothy McVeigh and Terry Nichols, both convicted of the bombing. McVeigh getting death, Nichols sentenced to life in prison.
Britain's Princess Diana has been killed in a car crash in Paris.
August 31st, 1997, Diana, Princess of Wales, died in a car crash in a tunnel in Paris. Her boyfriend, Dodi Fayed, and the driver of the car were also pronounced dead at the scene. Witnesses say the car hit high speeds to avoid the paparazzi.
Millions stayed glued to the television as that tragic story played out. But it was New York City living that entertained an entire generation of TV watchers.
Look, I am 30 years old, okay? I'm gonna be divorced twice and I just got evicted. That sandwich was the only good thing going on in my life. Someone ate the only good thing going on in my life.
Rachel, Monica, Phoebe, Joey, Chandler, and Ross never knew life would be this way. The Friends cast probably never knew their hit sitcom would go on to span 10 successful seasons. The show centered around the circle of friends struggling to survive in the real world, or at least Manhattan. The other wildly successful sitcom of the 90s also took place in Manhattan. This show was about nothing.
You want bread?
Yes, please.
$3. What? No soup for you.
Jerry Seinfeld plays a stand-up comedian whose life in New York City is made even more chaotic by his quirky group of friends who join him in wrestling with life's most perplexing yet often trivial questions.
How many times have I said that? No, so please. In the 1990s, the big screen was alive with terrific features. According to IMDb.com, some of the top 10 included American Beauty, Fargo, Pulp Fiction, and Titanic.
Hook, The Silence of the Lambs, The Parent Trap, and The Fight Club. But of course, nobody talks about The Fight Club. Jimmy and I took a vote between the two of us, and my favorite movie from the 1990s was Shawshank Redemption.
I think he did it just to feel normal again, if only for a short while.
Andy is a young and successful banker whose life changes drastically when he is convicted and sentenced to life imprisonment for the murder of his wife and her lover. Set in the 1940s, the film shows how Andy, with the help of his friend Red, the prison entrepreneur, turns out to be a most unconventional prisoner.
And it was close. We took that vote. You actually picked the #1 movie of the 90s. I picked your other favorite, which was #2, her other favorite.
My mom always said life was like a box of chocolates.
It's another thing I say a lot. Forrest Gump is a simple man with a low IQ but good intentions. He is running through childhood with his best and only friend, Jenny. His mama teaches him the ways of life and leaves him to choose his own destiny. Lisa.
I would say it's more like a tie, 1 and 2 for me.
Was, yeah.
It's so much fun looking back at the decades. More than a couple of times we've made comments about how old we are.
Yeah, but you know what? Age is just a number, and still ahead on Delmarva Life, living proof of that statement. She is 86. Despite her health, it's her bucket list that she's paying the most attention to. What made her decide to add zip lining to that list?
If you're a little younger, buying a cool car may be on the top of your list. Buying one doesn't have to cost you an arm and a leg. Find out the coolest new cars under 18 grand.
A little later on, we head to the Delmarva Life kitchen to cook up a recipe that was cool in the 90s. Pizza bagels.
But first, eating is something we all love to do. But for those struggling with an eating disorder, each bite creates a fight from within. We'll learn about some surprising triggers to eating disorders. Delmarva Life, we'll be right back.
Delmarva Life is brought to you by Sussex County Federal Credit Union, guiding you to your financial future. Peninsula Regional Medical Center, honored to serve the entire Delmarva Peninsula since 1897. Your local York and LG dealers, and State Farm Insurance. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.